Spider-Man swung through the neon-lit streets of Manhattan, his mind adrift in a sea of doubt, each webline he cast feeling more like a tether to an existence he no longer understood than the liberating act it once was, the city that had once pulsated with life beneath him. An intricate web of people, stories, and ambitions now seemed distant, almost alien. He perched atop a gargoyle on the Chrysler Building, his mask concealing the turmoil underneath, but inside, Peter Parker felt as though he were unraveling. The familiar weight of his Uncle Ben's words pressed on him as the autumn wind whipped through his suit. With great power comes great responsibility. It had been his guiding principle, a beacon that had once illuminated his path, giving him purpose. But tonight, those words felt hollow, almost suffocating. What was responsibility when his actions only seemed to be a fleeting balm for the deeper wounds of the world? What was power when it couldn't protect those he loved? Every day he saved lives, stopped crimes, pulled innocence from the jaws of disaster, and yet every day the world remained perilous, chaotic, and indifferent to his efforts. Peter wasn't sure when the seeds of this doubt had been planted, but they had grown, slowly, stealthily, until they threatened to consume him entirely. He had lost friends, Gwen, Harry, and even in his victories, there had always been sacrifice, as if the universe demanded payment for every life he saved. Who am I? The question gnawed at him. Was he Peter Parker, a boy from Queens trying to make sense of the world, struggling with rent and fractured relationships? Or was he Spider-Man, a symbol of hope, duty-bound to shield the city at all costs, even if it meant losing himself in the process? The line between the two had blurred long ago, and now he feared that there was no distinction left. What had started as a desperate attempt to atone for Uncle Ben's death had become a cage, a role he could never truly step out of. In the distance, he could hear the wail of police sirens, the chatter of dispatches over police radios, the unmistakable hum of a city in crisis. A bank robbery, a car chase, perhaps a fire. The details didn't matter. The city was always in need. Peter felt the tug, that familiar pull of duty, urging him to act, to leap back into the fray. But tonight, his limbs felt leaden. The truth was, he didn't know why he still did it. Was it guilt? Fear? Some abstract sense of obligation that had calcified into routine? The sense of purpose he had once felt was now an echo, faint and elusive. He thought of Aunt May, of how she had always been the moral compass in his life, her quiet strength a constant reminder of what mattered, but even her words had begun to feel distant, as if he were listening to them through a thick fog. He couldn't protect everyone. No one could. So why was he still trying? What was the point of it all, if the world continued to spiral into darkness despite his efforts? A flash of lightning illuminated the skyline, and Peter's thoughts turned to the countless villains he had fought. They had all, in their own twisted ways, been searching for something too. Some sense of meaning, power, control, and here he was, not so different, questioning his place in the same world they had tried to dominate or destroy. Perhaps that was the truth of it. Power, whether used for good or ill, had a way of consuming its bearer, twisting their understanding of who they were. In the depths of his confusion, he suddenly remembered something Ben had said long before the fateful night of his death. It wasn't the famous mantra. It was something more subtle, said in passing. You don't have to carry the world on your shoulders, Peter. You just have to do your part. Do your part. The words lingered in his mind, resonating in a way that Ben's famous axiom hadn't in a long time. It wasn't about saving everyone. It wasn't about fixing the world or making up for past mistakes. It was about doing his part and doing it to the best of his ability. Spider-Man wasn't a cure for the world's ills. He was a stopgap, a fleeting moment of hope in an often cruel and unforgiving world. But perhaps that was enough. Peter pulled off his mask and let the cool rain hit his face. His responsibilities hadn't changed, but his perspective had. He wasn't fighting to win some final victory, to be the answer to every problem. He was there to help, to offer what he could, when he could, for as long as he could. It was enough to be part of the solution, not the entire answer. With his mask clutched in one hand, Peter stood and surveyed the city once more. The sirens had faded into the background, the immediate danger past. He wasn't sure he had all the answers. He wasn't sure if he ever would, but for the first time in a long time, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter.